Is Aemeath going to be a Tune Break DPS? Let's talk about it. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. Okay, we recently have had Aemeath revealed, a very exciting character that appears to be one of the most important characters in the Lahairoi region. I'm sure that everybody is looking forward to getting her, and I myself am very excited to pull for her. I've acquired plenty of astrites from exploring Lahairoi, and she is likely to be the recipient of some of those astrites that I have acquired. So I am excited for her, and because she is coming out so soon, and she appears to be quite the important unit, and we recently got a brand new gimmick introduced, it leads us to wonder what is she going to do. I have briefly discussed in some of my previous Aemeath videos what I believe she's going to do, but I want to go a little bit more in depth on that today, and think about the different ways in which they can handle Aemeath as a Tune Break DPS. Now, granted, she might end up being something else entirely, but the reason that I think she is going to be a Tune Break DPS is pretty simple. She seems to be the most important character within the Lahairoi region. I don't know if she is a Sentinel Resonator, I don't know what her lore is going to be like, she seems to be quite a complicated character, and she has been confirmed to be a digital ghost, so I'm not really sure what to call her. I don't know if it's fair to call her a Sentinel Resonator, because I'm not really sure if that's the case? But we're gonna find out sooner or later, whenever she eventually reveals and her story comes out. But at least for the time being, I'm just gonna refer to her as the most important character of Lahairoi, and considering what happened to Cardathea, who was the Sentinel Resonator of Renacita, I do expect these important integral characters to regions to clearly inhabit their gimmick. I suppose the reason that I find Aemeath interesting is because she is going to be releasing quite soon, whereas Cardathea took quite a while to come out. She only came out in 2.4 after plenty of negative status characters had already been added to the game, whereas now, we recently got Linny, and we haven't even got Mornier released yet. She's going to be coming out soon in less than 2 weeks, so it's not going to be long until we get to play Mornier. However, we're already getting another character that seems to be quite important, and while we don't officially know what she's going to do yet, I am guessing that she is going to have something to do with Tune Break. I would find it a little bit strange if she didn't have anything to do with it. The thing is, even if she's not a Tune Break-centric DPS, I do still believe that she is going to benefit from it in some way, shape, or form, simply because every character in Wuthering Waves is able to use Tune Break. I don't believe that it's going to be the central thing for every character going forward, nor do I believe that characters 2 years from now are going to have Tune Break as one of their central character gimmicks. But I do think that at least for the foreseeable future, we will be seeing some characters sprinkled here and there that do deal in Tune Break. The reason why I say sprinkled is because I expected us to have every negative status team completed by the end of Renacita. In hindsight, thank goodness that was not the case. I am glad that we got plenty of DPSs that had nothing to do with negative statuses, but I said that back when I was still relatively optimistic about negative statuses, and we didn't really know what they did yet. But in hindsight, we now know that we only have the complete Erosion team and the complete Spectral Frazzle team. This could obviously change in the future, but for now, those are the negative status teams that we currently have that are complete. And that is after the entire year of Renacita in which the gimmick was introduced. So I don't necessarily think that every character that releases this year is going to have something to do with Tune Break, but the reason why I think it's going to be the case for Aemeath is, first of all, like I said, she is a very important character, and I do believe that because she's the focal point of the region, they are going to use her to try and sell the mechanic more, and because we recently got Linny. I can't speak much on Mornier yet because she isn't officially out yet. Linny ended up being a very universal support, but something that I'd like to add is that she is also Tune Break investment. This does just also mean that Linny is a ridiculously high value pull in general. Like, genuinely, I have spoken so much about how ridiculously good that character is for basically any Wuthering Waves account. I have said it more than enough times at this point, but she is also Tune Break investment. So because of that, I expect there to be a character that leverages that Tune Break investment soon. I am curious how good Aemeath is going to be with Linny. I think it's pretty obvious that they are going to be good together, simply because the only way that Aemeath and Linny would not synergize is if it was a negative status situation where Aemeath would want a really specific applicant. However, Linny released first, so that wouldn't really make any sense, and I do believe that she is probably going to be able to work with that character. And something else that fills me with hope is that Linny is quite a generalist, so maybe other characters that are able to provide generalist buffs are going to be good for Aemeath. We're just gonna have to see. I do believe that she's likely to be strong because she's a focal point character, though I will say that basically every new DPS in Wuthering Waves ends up being good, and there's not really such a thing as a main DPS that releases to being quite underwhelming. We do have weaker DPSs in the game now, but there's not really such a thing as a newer DPS that's not that good. I believe that from 2.0 onwards, basically every DPS with a decent amount of investment is relatively good, and all of the focus characters from there on are very, very strong. And I will say, the 1.x characters aren't bad if you invest into them and you get their teammates to upgrade them, but it is quite undeniable that a DPS Yuno of Linny is just stronger than a DPS Gion, unfortunately. So I would say that saying Aemeath is going to be good is a bit of a grass is green statement. That on its own doesn't really mean anything. Oh my goodness, new Wuthering Waves DPS is going to be good? What a shocker. That really doesn't mean much. It's how she stands out that means something and what she's able to provide to the table. But because she is a focus character, I do expect her to be a slight cut above the rest. Something like Cardathea level whenever Cardathea came out. Maybe a little less extreme than that, we'll see. Because I myself don't really know what level of hype she's supposed to be at. I don't really know if she's supposed to be as special as the likes of Jinchi and Cardathea. I think she is. She seems to be. She's gotten a lot of marketing focus. I just think I'm being really thrown off by the fact that she's so early. It shouldn't be that weird to me. We did get Jinchi in 1.1, but I guess the reason why that's different for me is because that was around the time when the game came out, so that wasn't really too strange to me. But for some reason, this is just very mysteriously odd to me that she's so early. I guess it's because of story. I don't really know how they're going to continue the Lahairoi story after releasing such an important character at this point, which creates some intrigue. I'm really curious to see where we're going to end up at the end of Aemeath's story, or at least the story arc in which he is going to have the most presence. There's a lot of unknown variables here, but it ultimately excites me. In relation to whether she's going to be an absolutely broken Tune Break character or not, I'd say there are a few ways that they can handle this. Now, my preferred way of them doing it is that Linny would be the best in slot, but there's still going to be good alternatives, and the character is still ultimately going to be strong, even if you don't have her best in slot. I have no doubt in my mind that the Tune Break duo is going to be the best possible core for her, not only because that's a really strong core in general, but because it's likely that if Aemeath's a Tune Break DPS, she is likely going to be designed with taking advantage of those two specific characters in mind. I do believe that she is likely going to end up being a very good investment. They have been throwing us some really powerful characters in Lahairoi. Like, seriously, we're getting banger after banger here, and granted, we don't actually know what Aemeath does yet. For all I know, she could end up releasing and have hardly anything to do with Tune Break. I'm not really sure if they're going to make her a character that procs Tune Breaks more often, simply because Tune Breaks pause timers, and I feel like that would just be a little bit too broken. Now, something different that they could do is make her damage considered as Tune Break damage. I think that's a little bit more realistic, and then her individual Tune Breaks that she gets will be a bit more powerful. And maybe she does trigger it a bit more often, but like I said, I just can't see them making her trigger it a lot, because that's just ultimately gonna be a little too broken. But I do think that if her attacks simply count as Tune Break damage, that doesn't pause timers and it seems a bit more balanced. Though, I'm not sure if they're going to do that. They might just stick to the usual basic attack, skill damage, liberation damage, that sort of thing. It should be noted that Linny buffs liberation damage, so maybe there's something there if Linny ends up being the best in-slot teammate, which I am pretty sure will probably end up being the case, so maybe there's something there. I don't really know how much of her damage output is going to end up being related to Tune Break if she is a Tune Break character. It could also be a Phoebe situation. Essentially, Phoebe wants Spectral Frazzle applied to the enemy because she gives herself so many buffs whenever that is the case. Absolution Phoebe gains so many benefits from enemies having Frazzle applied to them to the point where you basically always want Spectral Frazzle applied on the enemy whenever you're playing Absolution Phoebe. If Aemeath is designed like that, then perhaps she just wants Tune Breaks triggered so that she can give herself a lot of self-buffing. I think those are the two most realistic situations here. Either they make her a character that benefits a lot from Tune Breaks being triggered in the sense that she gives herself a lot of buffs, or she's able to trigger them more often or her damage counts as them. I don't know about her triggering them more often, that just feels so insanely broken, but maybe she is a focus character. I wouldn't say that that's an impossibility. We'll have to see how Kuro balances it out. Or maybe they just don't balance it out and she ends up being broken. I do think that she is going to be a really strong character, especially because units like Linny and Mornier are just really strong in general. Well, with Mornier, we have to wait and see, but she seems to be a good character. And with Linny, we already know that she is indeed an absolutely broken S-tier plus character. And I do believe that a vast majority of people are pulling for at least Mornier or Linny within 3.0. I really hope that Aemeath does not require both of them in order to be good. I hope that she does not strictly require Linny as a second slot teammate in order to be good. And I really hope that she is not going to be super budget unfriendly. Here's hoping for the best, especially because those two characters released in 3.0, and Aemeath is releasing in 3.1 it appears, meaning that those two characters have released too early to be rerun alongside Aemeath's banner, and typically speaking, Kuro Games usually likes to rerun synergistic teammates alongside brand new character releases, which they're not going to be able to do this time. The last time we saw this happen was Shikona. Shikona released directly before Cardathea, so anybody coming along for Cardathea would not be able to get Shikona for her. We'll see. I think that if this character is handled well, she could end up being really dynamic, fun, and interesting. I don't know what her teams are going to be like, I don't really know what to expect, but I do think that she's probably going to be a Tune Break DPS, and I do expect her to be quite strong. I don't think she's going to have anything to do with negative statuses or older archetypes, simply because she is the focal point of this region that has a brand new gimmick. I believe Kuro is going to want to sell that gimmick. Here's hoping that Kuro handles her well, ultimately. Hopefully this video is able to tell you how I think Kuro Games might handle Aemeath. This has been Juice, signing out. And I guess you could say she's really gonna tune break your ass right funds.